This is Newsroom on SABC News. Hello and welcome from Johannesburg in South Africa. I'm Eben Jansen. The show is live between 9 and 10 a.m. every weekday with highlights rebroadcast at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, then a complete rebroadcast at 5 a.m. the next morning. We're also streaming live on YouTube between 9 and 10 a.m. every day, with the entire show then also available on our YouTube channel. Now, on the 21st of March 1960, 54 years ago, thousands of protesters converged at the Sharpeville police station to protest against past laws, part of the then apartheid government policy that curtailed movement of African people. The law required that black people carry passbooks, or the much-hated dompas as it was called then. Much of our show will be devoted to the commemoration of this day, but we'll also a bit later look at the funding of political parties here in South Africa, and then towards the end we'll look ahead to the T20 World Cup. The Proteas kick off their campaign tomorrow. But first, let's start with today's news headlines. South Africa commemorates Human Rights Day today. The country commemorates 21 March 1960. 69 people were mowed down while embarking on an anti-pass law protest. Post-apartheid declared Human Rights Day. And as the country wakes up this morning to mark the day, a reminder that the Constitution protects the rights of citizens. 4 people have been killed and 13 injured after a taxi collided with a heavy goods truck in Boksburg. In another collision in the northwest, police are investigating a case of culpable homicide after 3 children were killed when a train crashed into a car at a railway crossing in Rustenburg. The Road Traffic Management Corporation has also confirmed that 9 other people were killed in Kokstad in KwaZulu-Natal when a truck was avoiding another vehicle. The driver of a truck lost control and collided head-on with a light delivery vehicle. Murder accused Oscar Pistorius is selling the house where he killed his girlfriend Reba Steenkamp. His lawyer, Brian Webber, says the luxurious home in the Silverwoods country estate is being put on the market to raise funds for his legal fees. This is the trial, which was scheduled for 3 weeks, has been extended. Today is Human Rights Day. The focus will be on Sharpeville in the Vaal, where government and the PAC will hold separate events. President Jacob Zuma will deliver the keynote address at George Tabe Cricket Sports Ground in Sharpeville in honor of those who lost their lives in the fight against apartheid.
21st March 1960. 69 people mowed down after embarking on an anti-pass law protest. Post-apartheid declared Human Rights Day. And as the country prepares to mark the day, a reminder that the Constitution protects the rights of citizens.
We have got the protection of the Constitution, the Constitutional Court, and then we've got the Chapter 9 institutions. Primarily now, the one that is very much in the news is the Public Protector.
Kathrada will address the UN Human Rights Commission in Geneva, a march highlighting social ills, young girls involved in prostitution, and the scourge of HIV/AIDS.
We try to identify the key population groups that we would be able to attend to, which are likely to help reduce the spread of AIDS.
The SABC is on board.
We all have a responsibility to ensure that our human rights record and history are preserved and strengthened for future generations.
The Sharpeville massacre was a turning point in South African history. The massacre created a crisis for the apartheid government, both inside and outside the country. News of the massacre drew immediate international condemnation. The government reacted by declaring a state of emergency and banned political meetings. Within less than a month, it banned both the Pan-Africanist Congress, which had organized the action in Sharpeville, and the African National Congress. After lengthy internal discussions, the ANC and PAC turned to armed struggle and went underground. Now in studio today from the Sharpeville Foundation, we have Mr. Brian Motileng. Good morning, sir.
Morning.
Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Poignant day for South Africa. Just tell us about the involvement of the foundation and what the activities would be for today.
The foundation was formed by us students the first two classes to matriculate in Sharpeville in 1975 and 76. It was just a reunion of a sort, but eventually we realized that there is a lack of leadership in Sharpeville, and Sharpeville is not getting the exposure it deserves. Yeah. So that's when we decided to form a foundation.
In the past, people of Sharpeville wanted their own day in a way. Why did they protest last year?
Let's take it this way. Rocksdrift is celebrated is commemorated in Rocksdrift. Isandlwana is commemorated in Isandlwana. Yeah. Why is in Sharpeville the massacre not commemorated in Sharpeville? That was the question we were asking. It should be commemorated where the massacre happened. Yeah.
How do you want the people of Sharpeville to remember today and then go on and share this day with other South Africans?
Sharpeville, if you remember well, it was Sharpeville and Langa, but the majority of people died in Sharpeville. So we would like the world to, the whole country to know that Sharpeville was the one that galvanized the whole world now to really recognize the brutality of the apartheid system.
Unity seems to have eluded us in a way. This day really should symbolize unity, don't you agree?
Yes, I do agree, yes. But this day is a victim of two parties that are too proud to come together for the sake of everybody in the country. We have the PAC, who have a moral high ground that they did organize this day. We have the ANC, who believe they are the owners of the revolution in South Africa. So the two of them are just too proud not to come together.
How do we get these two a bit closer together, especially around today, and because it's such a significant day for South Africa?
Not when you have a party in government that's as arrogant as the ANC. It will never happen. If you go to the gravesite, you'll see the arrogance of our government, that there is a commemorative stone over there. But they did build their own to override the one that was built by the PAC. I think that's the major problem in that.
How do you get this process? How do you get the healing to happen, and how do you maybe unveil something new?
We have to have visionary leadership in South Africa to have that. We have to have people coming off their high horses. The PAC shouldn't stick to their moral high ground that they did organize this uprising. They should recognize that there was a gap when the leadership of the ANC was being detained and underground at that time. So they should do that. The ANC should come up, should not think that they own the revolution in South Africa. They should come together for the sake of everybody in South Africa.
And today itself, how will it be celebrated today within the community, and how do you make the community feel part of this process then?
We as a Sharpeville Foundation have a fundraising boat trip that will be, the main speaker there will be Dr. Don Matera. We will be going down the Vaal River. After the boat trip, after Dr. Matera's speeches, the guests, our guests who come outside Sharpeville, who've never seen the massacre site and the grave site and everything, will be taking on a bus tour of Sharpeville. Then thereafter, there will be a fundraising auction of sketches by some of our youth in Sharpeville.
Well, thank you, sir. Thank you for joining us, and all the best with events and the festivities planned for today. Thank you once again.
Thanks very much.
Well, we're now going to cross to Gillian Pillay, who's standing by with a couple of guests and an update. Good morning, Gillian. Thank you.
Good morning, Eben. Eben, yes, we've been here since early this morning. Activities are really hotting up here at the Sharpeville Human Rights Precinct. Now, you'll remember that some 54 years ago, groups of people from this area embarked on a protest to a police station that's not far from where we are, against the anti-pass laws. Now, in the wake of that, there were 69 victims who died. And with me, I'm joined by one of the survivors who was part of that protest. I'm joined by Mr. Ike Makiti. Sir, just talk to us about what was the mood like on that day.
The mood was very jolly that day. We moved from the municipal offices. Then we were told to come here at the police station to come and wait for an answer at 1 o'clock. So it was in the morning, but they said we should wait until 1 o'clock. We'll get our answer in Sharpeville police station.
You say the mood was very jolly.
It was jolly. We were joined by all the women in Sharpeville were there shouting, Israel to Africa. They were shouting, singing, and it was a jolly mood. People had umbrellas that day because it rained a little. But we were going up, coming to the police station to come and join other forces who were already in front of us. So we found ourselves, the whole place here was full of people. They were right around the police station. Some of them were sitting on top of this building, which is standing here now, even on top of the clinics there. There were people sitting around, all the houses were sitting, people were sitting on top of them. The mood, it was about 20,000 people who were here at the police station.
What do you talk to us about that moment after you said it was a peaceful protest, the moment when police opened fire on your comrades and the strewn bodies?
Yeah, you see what happened when they shot, it was already after 1. There were people, I was coming from behind this building behind us and going down to the police station. The police station was standing there, that police station in front of us. There was also Saracens inside there waiting for the people to come. People were full. The whole street, you couldn't move through because they came as a white man with a black car. He came in here and he pushed his way through to that gate there. And then he went in. He had a small stick with him and he went inside. Then they asked that we should give them the leaders. They came out 3 people, which was Nyakane Tsolo, and Mr. Munyake, and one other, Father Mure. They got into the building here. After that, they started showing, he had a stick in his hand, and then he made a sign to the police, because we were plenty of people who couldn't see everything that is happening. At the time, they came I was in front here. Then he said, ratatatata. Then people would say, oh, they're just scaring us with some crackers. Then the front people were trying to push back. And at the back, they don't see that people are dying in front. It was a hell of a thing because it went on for about 5 to 10 minutes. Then people were fully, they were trying to push back to come out of in front of the fence, in front of the gate of the police station. There were people pushing. Some of them would say, oh no, it's just a threat. They are just threatening us with some crackers. When they saw people coming out, people were falling now. They started pushing back now. There was a fight now. Everybody wanted to go out. Then bodies were lying around there. There was one father who was standing next to the corner house there. He was standing in front and he had blood was coming, rain. His brain was falling out. He stood at the wall of the house. Then there were lying people, a lot of people were lying around. Then people were running away. Nobody knew what was happening because people never had any weapons, but it said that people who had weapons with them.
How did you feel to see that scenes?
That scene, even today, I cry. It gives me a lot of heart because I knew some of these people. When we were standing there, we saw, now they were lying here. There was one policeman. He was saying, You've got your land now. It was a black man, but he was saying that you found your Israeli too. Now here is it. That you have got it now. They were lying on the ground. Then he went there. They were given some sticks to finish off people who were already injured.
Talk to us about today. You're very emotional.
Very much. Because when I always remember that thing, it doesn't come off. It was a bad, very bad. You see, I didn't sleep for some time. After that, I couldn't sleep, thinking of what has happened, seeing people dying in front of us, even women. One mother had a baby on her. She died with that baby.
And how do you feel about today's commemorations?
Oh, today, at least now, there's some relief because we see there's some improvement, but not so much. Because people of Sharpeville, they are still at the back. You can see how is it Sharpeville. It's not improving, still going bad. People are still fighting even today. Even last year, you remember there was a fight here in Sharpeville because of what the ANC has done, that they want to take this thing to Johannesburg. But people are still fighting even today. They wanted to see what was going to happen today. Maybe they could take a stand again.
And that's Mr. Makiti giving us a testimony of that day. We are also joined now by the PAC president. The PAC president who will talk to us about some of the infighting that we've seen. Some of the infighting that we've seen, Mr. Elton. How will the PAC be celebrating today's celebrations?
Oh, we are not celebrating today's day, but we are commemorating. Even if people can fight, what is happening that in a day like this one, we embrace each other. So today as a PAC, we are saying we should put our differences aside and make sure that we honor this day and respect those people who were killed here because they were led by Robert Mangadi Sosoogwe. So we need to respect them and also our former president.
The skirmishes that we've seen play out here in the past, what was that attributed to?
In the past, I think the only problem that we are having, which is a problem in this township, is that this day they do not give it to the PAC to have full control of it. As we can see, people passing here with yellow T-shirts. I mean, this is our day. We don't have any problem if they join us, but they must not use government resources to try to overtake us in this day. Because as far as I'm concerned, the ANC does not even have a single day that they can say, this is our day. You go to June 16th, that is PAC and Azaf. They don't have anything now. They are coming here, trying to ask people to come in here to take this day away from us. But because we are now approaching the elections, they will try by all means to make sure that they push us. But with the PAC, 21st of March, we are not going to be pushed. It's not easy.
That's the PAC president talking to us about the celebrations that they will be doing today. Ahead of this, President Jacob Zuma will be laying a wreath at the memorial site, which is right next to the precinct where we are. From there, he'll go to the Sharpeville cricket grounds, where he'll deliver his keynote address. A lot of activity picking up here now. A lot of people converging on this area to be part of those celebrations. But yes, the day truly belongs to the 69 victims and the survivors of that day. The account that we got from Mr. Makiti talking to us about how emotional he still is in the light of 54 years that has gone by, but he still vividly remembers the scenes and the images that played out here where women and children and many of his comrades died wanting to stand up against the anti-pass laws. And as the PAC president says, yes, they'll join the government in the celebrations that will take place here at the memorial site, but they'll also embark on their own celebrations in door-to-door election campaign as part of their celebrations. Back to the studio in Johannesburg.
Thank you, Gillian Pillay. Now, the Mandela film that was released last year also captured the events of the Sharpeville massacre. The film gives you a chilling account of what happened on that fateful day 54 years ago.
Thousands gather outside a police station in protest against new laws requiring every African to carry a pass at all times.
The bastards ignored the flights, man! No, they weren't scared! Oh, I very well was! Toronto, maar weer hier, dan lijken er van die de cells are full.
How long is it going to take?
Of a state that makes war on its own people.
SABC, sharing 20 years of inspiration.
Get the Samsung Galaxy S4 from Telkom with a massive 5 gigs data, 100 included minutes and free uncapped Wi-Fi for just $369 per month on SA's best mobile broadband network. Rethink possibilities. Call, click, go to a Telkom store. Telkom.
It's incredible how this cup of coffee got here.
Explain.
Well, the farmer has to know when it's going to rain. The buyer needs to know when to buy. The trucks when to collect. For that, you need a satellite to talk to the ships and the factories.
So where's the coffee in all this?
I don't know, in a big warehouse somewhere. Which has to make sure that every farmer gets paid in the right currency.
So who does all of that?
Who knows?
De Beers has launched its Venetia underground diamond mine in Messina, Limpopo. President Jacob Zuma officiated. He called on the industry to improve the lives of mine workers.
This project is also significant because it demonstrates confidence in South Africa as an investment destination.
African Bank continues to be punished for toxic debt. Well, earlier we spoke to the head of African Bank's retail operations. He insists that the company is not alone and the profit warning is not unique.
So African Bank is not unique.
That's business news, weekdays at 8 p.m. on SABC News.
SABC, sharing 20 years of inspiration.
Welcome back. This is Newsroom. While Sharpeville was internationally remembered, few remember what happened in Langa on the Cape Flats. On the same day, the Pan-African Congress's Positive Action campaign called on people to leave their passbooks at home and march to local police stations. Residents of Langa adhered to the call. However, just like in Sharpeville, a meeting that started peacefully would end in tragedy. We cross now to Eben, our reporter. She has two guests, I understand, from the PAC in the Western Cape. Good morning, Eben. Thanks for joining us. Just set the scene and do the interview. Thank you.
Yes, Eben, thank you. As you've mentioned, Langa was the scene of one of the massacres in 1960. And the site that I'm actually standing at, there was no road back then. This was an open field. And on this field, thousands had gathered to come and listen to their leadership, the leadership of the PAC at the time. And with me right now, I have Mr. Kwedi Mkalipi, who was one of those in leadership of the PAC at the time. And he was one of those who actually called the community to come and listen and to take further instructions from them. Mr. Kalipi, thank you so much for speaking to us today. Just set a scene for us. Tell us exactly, what do you remember of that day? What do you remember feeling? What do you remember seeing that day?
Well, it's very difficult for me to forget that day because it is one of the days that the forces of apartheid showed their face to us. We had been called by our president, Robert Sobukwe, and that we will be demonstrating against the past laws. And Sobukwe emphasized that we should not be violent, We should leave everything that will be seen as a violent weapon, must leave behind. So because I was in the task force at that time, we woke up very early in the morning and we went over, I think it was around about 2 o'clock. We went door to door, putting some placards in the doors, lest you forget. And we're also coming inside the houses and tell the people to come into the field here. They should not bear any weapons, and they should only come for themselves. And indeed, the people agreed to do that. They decided then to come in big numbers. So by 4 o'clock, this place was full of people.
How many people were here? I believe there were people lining the roofs of the hostels. That's what I've been told.
At that time, it was estimated that there were about 10,000 people who were gathering here. And there were other people who were coming. Mind you, these people were coming from, not only from Langa, but from outside areas like Nyanga, Kensington, Kukuletu, and they were all coming, gathering in here. So that's what that made the whole thing now to be big, because the people were responding against the call, against the past laws.
Sir, now tell me specifically about today's commemoration. I believe that you will be walking to the graveyard. Just briefly, tell me exactly how you're going to be commemorating this day today.
Well, today we are coming here to remember our friends, our colleagues, our comrades who fell under the spear of the nation. We are going then to see to them spiritually, to be with them, and so that they can see us wherever they are, that we still care for them. At that time, we took a vow that we'll never forget them, and we're still keeping that vow. That's why then we're going over to visit their graves.
Well, there you have it, Mr. Kwedi Mkalipi, PAC leader, also a Robben Islander. He spent 20 years on Robben Island, speaking to us about the importance of this day and exactly how they are going to go and honor those who fell here in Langa in 1960. Eben, it's back to you in the studio.
Well, thank you, Abra Barbia down in Cape Town with an update from Langa. Let's just take a quick look at what you guys are talking about on social media on this day, Human Rights Day. Alex and the crew says, Happy Human Rights Day, everybody. Let's not forget that our rights go hand in hand with our responsibilities. That's very smart indeed. Zwote says, always leave room for your enemy. You might still be friends again. Well, that's a very nice tone for this morning. Tamim Dontwa says, as incidents of police shooting at protesters increase, we must remind ourselves on days like Human Rights Day that such action is inexcusable. That's right. Don't shoot first and ask questions later. Rashid Tofi says, let's not forget Sharpeville, 1960. Events like these shaped who we are as South Africans, both positively and negatively, says Rashid Tofi. Boss Lady, Princess Athea, okay, says, Happy Human Rights Day. We have the human right to speak, voice our opinions, and stand firm for what we believe in. We even have the right to call ourselves Boss Lady. Well, let's have a look now at what's happening on our Facebook page, of course. That's where we want you to go and like our page. We look back at this historic day there. There's photos, articles, as well as little bite-sized videos that you can look at about how young South Africans today think about Human Rights Day. There you'll also find the latest on Oscar Pistorius, who is now selling his Silverwoods country estate home in Pretoria to cover the costs of his trial. Go to the page, like it, and send us your comments. We love interacting with you. If you've got pictures, you can even upload it, or you can upload it on our Twitter page at SABC Newsroom. That's where we live online.
welcome to yet another edition of Sports Live, the show that brings you the latest local and international news, live interviews with the who's who in sport. He's the first South African to wear a yellow jersey that was at the Tour de France this year.
It's the first time that we get a boxer who's recognized by the Ring magazine as the best fighter in the planet to visit our country.
And he's very close to world record pace. And in fact, it is a new world record.
When you cross the line, what went through one's mind?
None of the four of us knew who had won. The scoreboard is always on the left, but all of us tend to the right. No, we just waited for the country to go down. RSA.
That's Sports Live, daily at 8:30 p.m. on SABC News.
Get all the latest news from the SABC's online news services on our website. Breaking news and in-depth coverage of everything from business, sports to politics and lifestyle. Catch the top news clips and watch live streaming of major news events on the SABC News YouTube channel whenever. Stay connected on the SABC News Facebook page and have your say on news that matters to you. And for the latest headlines and live updates from our reporters, follow us on Twitter. SABC Digital News, anytime, anywhere.
South Africa commemorates Human Rights Day today. The country, 21 March 1960, 69 people were mowed down while embarking on an anti-pass law protest. And as the country awakes this morning to mark the day, a reminder that the Constitution protects the rights of citizens. 4 people have been killed and 13 injured after a taxi collided with a heavy goods truck in Boksburg. In another collision in the northwest, police are investigating a case of culpable homicide after 3 children were killed when a train crashed into a car at a railway crossing in Rustenburg. Police are also probing why the vehicle was ferrying passengers illegally. The driver faces an additional charge of reckless and negligent driving. Murder accused Oscar Pistorius is selling the house where he killed his girlfriend, Reva Steenkamp. His lawyer, Brown Weber, says the luxurious home in the Silverwoods country estate is being put on the market to raise funds for his legal fees. This, as the trial that was scheduled for 3 weeks has been extended. Now, political parties are already kicked into top gear with the election campaigns as the May 7th elections draw closer. Temperatures between parties are also rising, each party trying to tell you who has the best story to tell. One story they are not telling the public is who's behind the funding of their political campaigns. Keeping the privacy of a political party's donor is one of the unwritten rules of politics, and all parties seem to agree that it should be held secret. Now, in our Cape Town studio to talk to us about private political party donors, we are joined by Gregory Solik from My Vote Counts. Good morning, Gregory, and thank you for joining us.
Hi, good morning. It's good to be here.
Start at the beginning, just to paint the picture. Where do political parties get their money from?
Well, the simple answer is that we don't know. But this is an old issue that several organizations have been campaigning for over the years. And when the IDARS litigation in the early 2000s ended with a disappointing court order, the issue went quiet for a couple of years. But in 2012, a whole host of organizations got together and tried to reignite the issue. Because when it comes to private donations to political parties, which is by far the largest portion of donations that they receive, there's absolutely no legislation or any kind of regulation that gives political parties any direction and, I guess, safeguards on how they can receive and how they can spend that money.
How do we compare with international benchmarks? Let's look at the United States, where you've got a strong lobby on Capitol Hill, but we sort of get an idea where the money's coming from. How do we compare to that? Is it completely the opposite?
Well, the US has a different electoral system to us, but I think the first thing to say about the system in the US is that it's probably the worst possible system in the West. We know that the influence of money in politics in the US system is highly problematic, and it's definitely not a system that we should look to. We should look at our particular context, and there are various ideas floating around. And the first step is to get Parliament to understand that it has a constitutional duty to pass legislation, whatever that looks like, because there are all sorts of options, and to initiate legislation on the private donations to political parties. That's not even addressing the public funding of political parties. That is a separate issue in itself.
What are the direct threats to our democracy if we don't know who is funding political parties?
Well, there's a triple threat to democracy. The first is that it creates political inequality because it allows the wealthy corporations and private individuals to exercise an influence on political parties or individuals within a party without the public knowing. So in order to exercise our right to vote when we go to the polls in May, we need to know who funds political parties and on what terms, so we can gauge policies or relationships or growing, trade with foreign governments. We can place those relationships on a spectrum because we understand more deeply the nature of those relationships. The second threat is, of course, corruption, because without proper legislation and regulation, it creates a culture of secrecy, and it allows individuals and parties to take money from sources that are highly questionable. But of course, in a state of secrecy, we don't know the terms on what terms parties receive that money, and that's highly problematic. And the third threat is that it creates a culture of a lack of accountability, which, as we all know, is completely against the Constitution, which in the founding provisions say that we aim to create a constitutional culture of openness, transparency, and accountability.
With all of that said, how unethical is it then to take money from overseas that you don't, or that is not completely disclosed to your constituency?
Well, I mean, all of this needs to be debated at the moment because there's no law that regulates this. It is not in itself unlawful. But, for example, when trade starts to increase with China and when the Dalai Lama is refused access to South Africa for questionable reasons, we begin to see the influence of money in politics. We begin to see that the governing party becomes under pressure from the Chinese government because they don't want His Holiness the Dalai Lama coming into the country. Now, that is highly problematic. So is it when the DA, for example, is forced to have merger discussions with a Gang because an overseas investor puts pressure on the two parties or the leaders of the two parties to join. Now, to My Vote Counts and the organizations that support our work or the people that we work together with them on this issue, it's very obvious that that's a massive problem, and we would say completely unethical.
What are the alternative funding models that we should be looking at for political parties in this country then?
Well, we try not to go into that debate because the current treasurer of the ANC keeps luring activists and other organizations into a discussion about a democracy fund, for example, which sounds very promising, but without legislation, without a framework within which we can go to Parliament and comment on bills, we actually aren't going to get anywhere. The Democracy Fund, I think, is something that should be debated, but there are all sorts of other issues. How much should individuals be allowed to give political parties? Should there be a cap? Should there be a cap for disclosure? Should there be an innovative tax model where each citizen gets to donate 100 Rand of their tax money to political parties, so it's all run through SARS? Do we ban foreign donations from foreign governments? Do we ban donations from foreign companies? It is such a complicated debate. The first step is to agree that the failure to enact legislation in the first 20 years of democracy is a massive failing. And once we accept that, we can then move into a space and debate with Parliament what type of legislation would best suit South Africa. It is not going to be a panacea for change, because at the end of the day, we need politicians who behave in a way that is open and transparent and ethical. But it's an important first step.
Thank you very much for joining us today. Gregory Solik from My Vote Counts, giving us an insight into political party funding in South Africa and what changes should be affected now. The ANC says it will ensure that all of those who fraudulently access state funds for self-enrichment in the Nkandla project will suffer the consequences. The party yesterday responded to the Public Protector's final report on security upgrades to President Jacob Zuma's private homestead.
It was always going to be mired in controversy on the eve of elections. Thuli Madonsela found that President Zuma benefited unduly from irregular and improper expenditure of public funds, and that he and his family should repay some of the money. The ANC says while it accepts the report, the timing of its release is concerning.
The timing of the release of the report remains a source of concern in terms of the disruptive effect it will have on the election campaign of all parties. We've already observed from the reaction of many opposition parties that the report has provided some ammunition for them to have something to talk about, because many of them have nothing to say and nothing to offer to the electorate.
The ANC says the report broadly reflects what the Interministerial Committee uncovered during its own investigations. But the two differ on what should happen next. Luthuli House wants action to be taken.
All public office bearers, officials and private sector companies involved in animal administration must be brought to books. And all funds that were acquired inappropriately must be recovered.
An ANC-led delegation will be visiting Nkandla next week to get a first-hand account of the 215 million rand plus upgrades. The party's youth league had a radically different response. Speaking from the same podium where Mantashe said the ANC had no intention of ignoring or undermining the report, a call on the public protector to step down.
For this woman to step down. We think that time has arrived. She must step down. Having her until 2016, we think that is going to derail unity. Just to give you an example about the SABC COO. Here is a person who applies for a job. The SABC will come out with a job advert and requirement. In its own wisdom, it should list the same person who has no matric according to the public protector. It interviews this person, and from there it hires this person. Then the findings is about the person. Why not about the institution? Because SABC is a legal institution.
The presidency says it's studying the report and will respond in due course. Mzwande Lembeje, SABC News, Johannesburg.
South Africa, finally, South Africa will kick off their opening World Cup T20 campaign against Sri Lanka tomorrow. South Africa's T20 captain Faf du Plessis and pace spear Dale Steyn both battling hamstring injuries which kept them out of South Africa's final warm-up match against Pakistan earlier this week. A final call on their availability will be taken tomorrow on the day of the match. Now, former professional cricketer turned journalist Craig Murray is with us in Cape Town. Good morning, Craig. Thank you for joining us.
Pleasure. Good morning, Eben. Good morning to all your viewers.
Different mantra this time around, Craig. Coming in underneath the radar for the tournament. Is this going to change our fortunes?
You know, the whole T20 is such a hit and miss, and pajama cricket, anything can happen.
I thought it was hit and giggle.
Maybe that is a good thing. Hit and giggle. Anything could happen, really, you know, but it could suit them being under the radar. They're not really fancied for this tournament, and hopefully that'll work for them. You just never know. There's not exactly one team that sticks out, so it's going to be the team that really applies themselves the quickest to the conditions in Bangladesh.
Talking about those conditions, they're a little bit different to pretty much elsewhere. I think is it almost a little bit like the UAE, that kind of flat track, slow turn, or good for batting?
Yeah, and also like a lot of these subcontinent countries, you know, it's best to actually strike with a new ball, easier for batting, because once that ball gets softer and the spinners come in, it's very difficult to get away. So the power plays, those first 6 overs are vitally important with bat and with ball to get off to a good start, and that wonderful word in cricket and especially T20, momentum, get momentum early on.
The South African lineup it's not really 100% settled. There are a couple of injury concerns about as well. But let's go back to the batting order where most of the criticism has come at. It's that you know, David Miller needs to bat a little bit higher up, and Eben de Villiers needs to bat at 3. What are your views on that? It seems that there's a slight change starting to happen now.
Yeah, there's been a lot of criticism about that, and I think Russell Domingo and the South Africa team have hopefully heeded the concerns, because 2020 cricket goes so quickly, and you need your best batsman to bat up front. So to have Eben de Villiers at 3 and David Miller, bring him in a lot earlier. They have got, it's quite nice that they've got Albie Morkel there. So instead of having David Miller as the finisher, you sort of got a similar player. Albie Morkel can be that sort of guy. Quinton de Kock, hopefully, you know, so much will depend who wins this tournament is guys who hit form. And we know in 2020 cricket, a bowler, a batsman, a brilliant performance can win you a match, and performances can go win you a tournament. So hopefully Quinton de Kock will be on fire. A little bit of criticism about Hashim Amla, but he's a big name player, whether he's made for T20 cricket. But you never know with Amla, he could really come off early on. And then you sort of got those guys like JP Durmani. Bahardin got runs in the last game. They sort of take lots of 1s and 2s and work it in the middle area. Lots of left-handers here, but I've never seen so many left-handers in a South African team with bat and with ball.
No, Craig, it's going to be who plays the spin best for the next couple of weeks that's going to win this tournament. Quinton de Kock, everybody seems to be opening with the spinners. How's he looking against the spin? And then Hashim is a sure bet against the slower men, isn't it?
Yeah, I think whatever the bowler is, you know, I think South Africa the cricket team just need a mind shift. They've always been a little bit cautious. They haven't really, you know, adopted to this T20 cricket like a lot of the other countries have. So maybe throw caution out of the wind. Obviously, you have to make the right decisions under pressure at a time, but maybe they need to be a lot more attacking, put the pressure on the opposition. They always seem so pressurized, and then the word choking comes out. So Imran Tahir with the ball, as you say, with the spinner, he'll be vital. He's like he'll be the wicket taker and try and get wickets. But then obviously the other countries, you know, the likes of and the first game on Saturday, you know, against Sri Lanka, they got the likes of Ajunta Mendes, Sananaika. They even got Regana Herith, Sage Ajmal, and then obviously the West Indies, the defending champion Sunil Narine. So those spinners are vital. They're there to pick up wickets, and hopefully South Africa in the warm-up games, they showed a little bit how to work the ball around after those 6 overs, take lots of 1s and 2s, and South Africa has always been good running between the wickets and fielding. So those small little things, the basics, if they do that well, they could be in with a shot.
Thanks, Craig. You've got 30 seconds to give us a prediction this afternoon. It's India against Pakistan. Those are always very highly fielded.
Yeah, you never know which Pakistan's team's going to pitch up. They've still got Boom Boom Afridi, and we know the likes of Sage Ajmal. But I think India will probably will go and win that game. They've got a very strong batting lineup with all the Rohit Sharmas and the likes of Shikhar Dhawan, Yuvraj Singhs, but their bowling always seems to be a bit lacking. But it's always great to watch an India-Pakistan game. And just for the tournament, but maybe Australia, the dark horses there, they've got a very experienced team. Australia, my head says South Africa won't do it, but my heart is always hoping that they will. And maybe the under-19 team winning the World Cup will be that added boost that they can finally break their duck and go win a World Cup.
Thank you very much, Craig Morea. I hope your storm has come through for you today. That's Craig Morea down in Cape Town giving us his views on, the Cricket World Cup, T20 World Cup really starts in earnest today. But let's take a quick look at social media before we go. Your views are very important to us. And Mteto says, I would have thought the smartest people made planes. Nah, that's such a big plane got lost. I can't help but think differently. You know, one swallow don't make a summer, my friend. Double R says, still no news on the missing MH31370. The Aussies called the presser before they had verified information. The whole PM nogal. Well, that's what the Australians do. Molefe Lebone says, oh boy, America is talking sanctions and Russia is not backing down from Crimea. This tit for tat is looking very nasty. War is on the cards. We hope not, Molefe, because that will lay an entire planet to waste if that is the case. Mukhatso says, Oscar must sell the house. We don't really care. He hired an expensive lawyer, so he must pay up. There is absolutely no fear. Would you buy Oscar Pistorius' house? That's the other question. It would creep me out, especially if I was home alone late at night. I would also take all the toilet doors off, my dear. Well, this has been a broadcast brought to you by SABC News. The show is live between 9 and 10 every weekday morning, with highlights rebroadcast at 2 in the afternoon, and then a complete rebroadcast at 5 a.m. the following morning. We're also streaming live on YouTube between 9 and 10 a.m. every day, and then you can watch the show at your leisure on our YouTube channel, as it's there all of the time. This is Newsroom. We love it in the morning.